unrest in Libya and beyond. She's a board member of the Africa Democracy Foundation, and I'm glad to say she joins us again right now from Rome. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for saying yes too. Tell me, we were just talking there about influx of up to 300,000 people from Libya into Italy. Could Italy cope with that? Would it be prepared to cope with it? Would it have to cope with it?
I think that first of all, the figures nobody knows, and I think they are also exaggerated for domestic consumption. They are trying to divert the attention from our responsibility to this sort of threat, which is always possible. I do remember that in '99 we had 1 million displaced from Kosovo to Albania in 1 week. In the Great Lakes. So every crisis normally brings with it an influx of displaced refugees, displaced asylum seekers, and so on and so forth. But definitely I think they are using it as a threat for domestic consumption. Definitely there will be a sort of refugees coming, but I think Italy must be prepared to cope with them. Their call for European solidarity, well, we in Italy didn't show so much solidarity to Germany when they received hundreds of thousands of people from Eastern European. So I don't think it will work, but definitely Italy has to be prepared. It's a historical responsibility, it's a sign of humanity, and it's our moral duty.
And what about this close relationship and so on, suspicious relationship, some would say, but close relationship between Berlusconi and Gaddafi? How much of that is an embarrassment, shall we say, to Italy?
Well, it was much more than that. You know, this close relation with Gaddafi is enthusiastically bipartisan. Also the opposition and Foreign Minister D'Alema and the strategic treaty of partnership and whatsoever was enthusiastically ratified, with some exception, in Parliament 2 years ago. So let's say, then of course Berlusconi, as usual, doesn't have a sense of, let's say, decency, and so the question is that all the visit of Gaddafi were a total show. It doesn't have the sense of the limit and institutional decency. But in the substance, this agreement, and particularly the Article 4, the question of immigrants and so on and so forth, anyhow, that was enthusiastically approved, bipartisan, with the opposition involved. That's why the embarrassment is, well, you can feel it, but not only from Berlusconi.
Top trading partner to Libya is Italy, 17 billion a year, they say. Is that level of trade under threat today? Well,
but I think that these figures is definitely exaggerated. The last figure I saw for 2010 was more or less 7 billion. But definitely there is a lot of interest in from the Gaddafi family in Italy, in Eni, in Fiat, in Juventus, in whatsoever. But I must say that there is also a lot of interest with the French, and not to forget English and UK. Tony Blair was a consultant of the Libyan Sovereign Fund. So let's say the Libyan interest in Europe go very, very deep, and in Italy also because of gas and oil. But I think it's widespread.
But Colonel Gaddafi says he is, quote, going nowhere, unquote. Do you think in a few months' time he will still be ruling in Libya? Will he survive this?
Well, I hope not, on behalf of the Libyan people, because we in the West, when we were looking at Gaddafi, we were only looking at, let's say, massacres with non-Libyans. So we always remember Lockerbie, or we rightly remember the bombing of the French airplane in Niger. But we must remember that he was a terrible guy against his own people. People tend to forget that in the Abu Salim, 1,000 prisoners were shot back in the 90s. So I hope, on behalf of the Libyan people, that he will not be in charge of the country. Exactly how it has been in the past year, that is totally unacceptable. And what he's doing now is waging war against his own people. And I think an international inquiry has to be decided immediately, because it's important to take note and to take stock. I think there are elements of crimes against humanity.
And of course, at the moment, Berlusconi is himself under siege in terms of the law being after him, and in fact the trial that's due to come up accusing him of paying for underage sex and so on. In that particular situation, do you think Berlusconi has no hope in such a trial, or does the fact that there are 3 women there make it tougher for him or easier for him in this trial, or will he still somehow pull the strings himself?
Well, what I do hope is that he will go and defend himself, if possible, in front of the judges. But there are other possibilities that I think they will exploit. For instance, postponing the trials for institutional commitments, or many other issues that are legal under our law. But on behalf of all of us, I hope, on the contrary, that he would go in front of the judges and prove to be innocent, I hope. But for all of us, of course, could be better if he could prove himself innocent. And this is what I think he should do.
And in fact, do you think he would ever step down voluntarily or step down under pressure, or is that something that he would find repugnant?
No, I don't think that he will step down under pressure. And the weakness in Italy is that, first of all, the democratic institutions are so weak, and so since a long, long time. I think that Berlusconi is the result of a system that has become weaker and weaker. Now, I do think that in democracy, I hope we would be in a position to defeat Berlusconi through the political process, meaning through elections, because that is what democracy should be. But, as I said, the state of the democratic institution in my country is pathetic.
And in fact, if he was found guilty in this trial, could he stay on as Prime Minister?
Well, it will take a long time, you know, and I think that if he's found guilty, he could not. And in the meantime, I hope that also the opposition will finally find an alternative, because the weakness of this situation